I'm a journalist. It's my job to ask questions. It's an occupational hazard. So I'm going to start with a question. One that's dreaded universally. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? What's your 5-year plan? How many of you have an answer to that question? Let me try and see. How many of you have an answer to that question? Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Not a lot of you. Okay, so let me change the question. How many of you want to know where you're going to be in the next 5 years? How many of you want to have it all planned? Show of hands again. How many of you want to have the next 5 years of your life planned? Okay, so for those of you who didn't raise your hands, I have some good news for you. But for those who did, you might change your mind by the end of this talk. Because you see, if I would have stuck to the 5-year plan that I had for myself 5 years ago, as cliche as it might sound, I won't be standing here today. You see, from year-wise career trajectories to minute-by-minute travel itineraries, from daily routines to 25 mein naukri, 26 mein shadi, we've glamorized the idea of making plans far too much. So today, I'm going to talk about the power of not having a plan, the power of not knowing where you're going to be in the next 5 years, the power of trusting what's beyond the known to find out what you're truly meant to do. And while I talk about this, while I tell you these things, you must be wondering, you've watched countless videos and you've read countless articles on how to find your passion. They talk about purpose, meaning, impact, and everything in between. But more often than not, they leave you more confused than before. And after all, how much of this information has helped? How many of you know what your passion is? We saw the answer right here, not a lot of you. So what if I told you that I have 3 clear, objective, practical, one-size-fits-all mantras that you can apply to your life to find out what your true passion is? And while I do this, I don't want to sound like some life guru. Trust me, I've done nothing to deserve that title. I've not lived a life that's long enough, or as the legendary Rajesh Khanna would say, I've not lived a life that's big enough to give you all of this gyan. But the one thing that I've managed to achieve in just 25 years of my life is something that a lot of you, that most of us, fail to find even after we spend most of our lives on it, and that's passion. So today, I'm going to use my little life as a case study here. I'm going to use my little life as an example here to tell you how not having a plan led me to my passion. It's an occupational hazard, as I said, to ask questions. So this story also starts with a question. Show of hands again, you have to participate here. How many of you think that you're smart? I'm smart, I'm intelligent. How many of you think that at least you're smart enough to be doing what you're doing today, to be where you are today? Okay, quite a lot of you. Well, I'm not one of you. If 10 years ago you would have told me that I should be a journalist, my first response would have been, I'm not smart enough for that. I mean, these are few of the most well-read people in the country. They know a little bit about everything, and somehow they remember all of it to keep throwing it in between random conversations in their primetime debates. I've not even read a newspaper. I don't read a newspaper every day. I've not sat through one primetime debate. I've not even written an article for a school magazine. How can I be a journalist? Journalism was so far beyond the known for me that I didn't even get a journalism degree. I studied economics. So then how did I land up here? So right out of college, I did what most of us do when we don't know what to do. Haphazardly made a CV with the best looking template that all seniors recommend. Sat for placements. Took the first job that I could manage to get, and it was a financial advisory role with a Big Four consulting firm. Big Four accounting / consulting firm. And you know, by this point in my life, I didn't have questions like, what is my purpose? What is my meaning? What am I meant to do? Liked reading economics, so took up economics honors. Heard from my seniors that finance jobs get you a lot of money, so applied for finance jobs. I didn't have any idea. I simply didn't think of the profound ideas of meaning and purpose and passion. But as humans, I guess, we love to learn things the hard way. Within a week of my finance job, I called one of my closest childhood friends, Priyanka, and I told her this verbatim. I don't know what I want to do, But I know one thing. I don't want to do this. How did I know that? Here's where I discover mantra number one. While working in finance, when I looked at my seniors, I didn't want to be them. I didn't want their life 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road. And don't get me wrong. These were people who were extremely passionate about their jobs. These were people who were very happy with their lives. They were accomplished. They were fantastic people overall. I just didn't want their life for myself. That's as simple as it is. You know, when you're working in a job, when you give a job your everything, then your best bet is that you're going to end up like one of your seniors. Your best bet is that you're going to become like one of your star seniors, a manager, a partner, an editor, a director, depending on which industry you're in. So when the best case scenario of a particular job doesn't excite you, then why would you spend most of your life on it? When the most successful people in a particular job, in a particular field, don't inspire you, then why would you stick to that job? I mean, when you don't want to end up like them, why would you follow the same path that they did? This, according to me, is the most objective way to find out whether you should stick to a job, whether a job is meant for you. The simple question of, do you want to end up like your seniors? Just career-wise, of course. While the answer was no for me in finance, it changed when I joined journalism, and that's how I knew that this is where I'm truly meant to be. But then the question again is, how did I land up in journalism? So then after leaving finance, I did what most of us do, again, when we don't know what to do. I again had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do next. I mean, I was stupid enough to not even give my plan A enough thought. Forget coming up with a plan B or plan C. So I did what most of us do when we're helpless, which is call our friends who are equally helpless. So one of my friends reminded me, you know, our school teachers used to say that you should become a journalist. After all those debates you used to participate in school, they used to say that they can see you do that on primetime debates and you never took them seriously. And come to think of it, I thought somehow it had been ingrained in me all my life, right from my childhood. My family used to call me a ladaki, somebody who argues or fights a lot. So in a way, I was doing a small part of being a journalist right from the start, which was questioning the why behind everything to just arguing, almost always, for the right reasons. My family used to jokingly say कि ये तो बातों का खाएगी, meaning she's going to make a living out of talking. So I thought, why not take that literally? So my friend said to me, look, you've got nothing better to do. You have no other skill. Your only skill is talking. So why don't you just try for journalism jobs? She was right. It was a hard pill to swallow, but I didn't have any other skill. In fact, in those 5 months that I spent in that finance job, every single day I used to feel like I'm so bad at what I'm doing. I used to feel incapable, inefficient. I was a fresher, so most of my work was really basic. I used to compare my Excel skills to other people's skills, the VLOOKUP and the countless functions that you have. And I used to feel that I'm so bad at this. I'm simply not good enough. And here's where it gets interesting. That's not a problem. Not being good enough at something is not a problem. You put in work, the 10,000-hour rule almost always kicks in. You give something work, you get a skill in return. The problem comes when you don't want to get better at it. I didn't want to become a better consultant. And that's mantra 2, for finding out what you don't want to do. It is the simple question that do you want to put in the effort to get better at it? So that's mantra 1 and mantra 2 to find out what you don't want to do. So then we should very rarely, though, we should listen to our friends, but I actually took her advice and I started job hunting. And I landed up in a back-end research role at a news channel called Mirror Now. And at that one place, both my mantras were satisfied from day one. From the morning edit meetings to every chance I would get to speak to my editors when they would assign me work, I used to be fascinated by these people. I mean, during the morning edit meetings that were led by our then editor, Vinay Tiwari, I used to be amazed, how does one person add so much depth to every story? How has one person met so many people from all walks of life? How does one person know so much, and yet be so grounded. I thought it would be a dream to be even a percent of who he is. And Mantra 1 told me that that's my answer for where I wanted to be. And every single day, I hope there are more coming. So every single day, I would look at these seniors, I would look at these editors of mine, try to observe their habits, their little idiosyncrasies, to try and become a little bit like them, to try and become a better researcher, a better storyteller, and one day a better journalist. So Mantra 2, also a check. So both mantras got checked at this place in Mirror now. And here's the beauty of finally doing what you're meant to do. You turn out to be pretty decent at it. While I struggled at that finance job, I was just so bad at it, I can't even tell you how bad. Here, I became one of the youngest news anchors on national television at NDTV. Thank you for that. At 22 years of age, I was a news anchor and reporter with one of the biggest news organizations of the country, none of which I had anticipated for myself. And believe me when I say this, these titles didn't come to me because I had anything special in me. These titles came to me because I was simply doing what I was meant to do, because I loved doing what I was doing, and why wouldn't I? I was speaking my mind, I was questioning the most powerful people in the country, I was using my voice to give a platform to the voices who would have never been heard. All this while also being at work. You see, I'm a very emotional person. Every time I would see things like a child who should be in school working in a house next to mine, or my domestic help coming with a bruise from her husband every single morning. I used to feel outraged, but helplessly outraged. I couldn't do anything about any of this. And journalism is that one profession that gave me the power to channel my outrage, to bring at least a little change in even one person's life. And I do that full time now. When I saw hundreds of people losing their house in the floods in Delhi, I channeled the pain that I felt for them. Instead of just outraging, instead of just being in my hole, I channeled that pain to tell their stories to the world, to put it on national television, so that they ended up getting relief, they ended up getting rescued from those floods. So I didn't enter journalism knowing that it's going to be my passion. I entered with curiosity to find out what it's going to be like. So after all, it's a bunch of hidden trials. You have to try a host of unknowns to finally know what's truly yours. Now you must be thinking, I've told you how to find out what you don't want to do, but how do you find out what you want to do, what's meant for you? Not all of you are lucky enough to have teachers like me who predicted my future back in school. So this is where mantra 3 comes in, and it's one of the most interesting ones. I learned this during my education sabbatical. After 3 years in journalism, I went to the Indian School of Business for a PGP in management and then took a class called Design Your Life, which is originally from Stanford. Now in this class, I learned an extremely simple but possibly life-changing exercise that all of you can do in literally 30 minutes to find out what you're meant to do. So you actually take 3 different sheets of paper. You take 3 different chart papers, you take colored pens, sketch pens, depending on how creative you want to be, and you divide each of these sheets into 5 different sections, something like this. These 5 sections represent the next 5 years of your life. Now, on these sheets, you are going to draw 3 different Odysseys, 3 different lives, 3 different possible futures for you, 3 different next 5 years for you, which is why there are 3 different sheets. And you talk about everything from career to finance, to your personal goals, to your travel goals, to your fitness goals, to when you want to get married. Everything should be included in this plan, and it should be categorized year-wise, specific goals for each year. But what are these 3 lives? In life 1, you're going to draw what your life will look like if everything goes exactly according to your plan. If you continue doing what you're doing currently. So let's say you're a consultant right now. In year 2, you will become a senior consultant. And by the end of year 5, you possibly become a manager. So that's your life 1, just the career part of it. In life 2, you draw out what you'll do if the plan that you drew in life 1 fails. Let's say you get fired from that consultancy job, there's a recession, anything that you haven't anticipated. Then what will you do if your plan fails? So then let's say you're going to finally start working on that startup, that cloud kitchen startup that you've been thinking of for years now. So that's your life 2. And for life 3, this is the most interesting part. You're going to draw a life that you would have if money, power, status, image, log kya kahenge, none of this mattered. Let's say you enjoyed theater in school or college, but you had to give it up because your family didn't approve of it. But in this imaginary life, you're an actor. That's your life 3. Possibly a struggling actor, but let's keep it that way. And this life 3 per se doesn't have to be what your passion is. You pick out different pieces from each of these 3 lives. Let's say you like your career best from life 2. You like your personal life, when your marriage plans from life 3. You like how you're achieving your fitness and travel goals from life 1. You pick and choose the best parts from these 3 lives to create your ideal life. And somewhere along life 1, 2, and 3, you're likely to find out what you truly want to do. That's mantra 3. Now, we've gone through these mantras about how not having a plan can help you. But before I upset any parents or any professors, very respected professors here, I want to say that I'm not saying that making plans is bad. Definitely make plans, but don't let those preconceived plans limit you from what you could truly become. Definitely make plans, but what we do, the problem is that we think more, we plan more, we drain ourselves so much that we don't even have the energy left to actually execute these plans. So Nike wasn't wrong when they said, just do it. Make plans, but if they don't work out, trust that the reboot has the power of being better than your initial plan. As I said, if my plan would have worked, I wouldn't be standing here today. So that's the power of not having a plan. But even after I'm here today, even after I found my passion, journalism, I didn't stick to a plan. A lot of people told me that you're anchoring in one of the biggest news organizations of the country, you shouldn't leave it at the prime of your life. Uma ma'am is sitting right here. I remember an email from you back then where you said, till the time you have age on your side, don't leave television. Very sound advice. But I thought to myself that, do I want to do something that I'm doing simply because it fits into the ideal career trajectory of a TV journalist? Or for the glamour attached to it, which I thought that was one of the positives of the job. Did I want to stick to that simply because of those reasons? And I thought to myself that I wanted to do something which lets me live the reason why I joined journalism, which was to tell important stories. Which is why the day I resigned, I didn't have a plan. I didn't know which organization I was going to join. And because of that, today I founded my own news organization, Peak TV, with one of the most fantastic young journalists that I know. It might not be as glamorous as the job of a TV news anchor. Forget might, it is not as glamorous as the job of a TV news anchor. But I now feel more powerful than ever before. I get to decide what stories to tell, how to tell them, when to take a stand for the right things, and help build a generation of more informed Indians. I now feel, again, more powerful than ever before because I didn't follow all of those plans. Now, as we wrap, one question that might come to your mind. For somebody who's so erratic, I left finance, then I left journalism, then I built my own company. What's to say that I won't leave this too? What's to say that I won't leave Peak TV? Well, here's what I want to make absolutely clear here. Not having a plan doesn't mean you become a professional nomad. We definitely have plans. We definitely have plans for ourselves and for Peak TV. But we don't let those plans limit us or define us. I mean, what's to say that Peak TV will always be a news channel? So definitely have plans. But now, I've created that space for myself where that itch in me to not have a plan allows me to take risks, allows me to experiment, to innovate, to enter areas that would be too radical, that would be seen as too impossible right now. And all of that has been possible because I didn't have a plan. You know, we spend almost 1/3 of our lives working. And today, because of all of this, my routine is exciting. I get motivated by the kind of stories that I'm going to tell every single day, and not by what my work is going to allow me to do on my weekends. As I said, we spend 1/3 of our lives working, but most of us, unfortunately, choose work that simply enables the remaining 2/3, that simply lets us fund the remaining 2/3, things that we actually love to do, travel, family time, anything that matters to you. But isn't it such a waste of such a big portion of your life if you only use it to enable the remaining part of your life? Isn't that a waste when you can make even that 1/3 gratifying? And I know this comes from a position of privilege. Not everybody has the luxury to leave their stable jobs to find out their passion. But if you would have noticed, not once did I promote that. I did not leave my finance job till the time I had a confirmed offer from a news channel. The point I'm making is that you don't have to throw your entire life away to find out what you're truly meant to do. The 3 mantras that I told you about today can be easily applied while you carry out your daily life responsibilities. Because trust me, it's worth the juggling to not leave this world without even finding out what all you could become, what all you were capable of becoming. Yes, you must have a plan for the kind of life that you should have. But don't let that keep you from the kind of life you could have. Thank you very much.